Howdy, my fellow American. I have no doubt that, like me, you're recoiling from actually looking at the horrific state of the world in 2021. Every piece of news you see is worse than the last. The West Coast cities of Seattle and Portland are heroin-infested open-air insane asylums where criminality is allowed to run rampant by downtrodden police departments and leftist politicians. It seems like every few days there's some news story about a black person shot by police that, no matter how objectively culpable the victim was for getting shot, gets painted as an innocent martyr, leading to rioting, defunding of police forces, and increased social discord. New York City might never recover from the pandemic. Per a Gallup poll, only 28% of respondents trust journalists anymore. Our president is a corrupt, dementia-addled joke that 65% of Republicans believe stole the last election. About 20% of US dollars in circulation were created just this year. Gas prices are astronomical, and per a Pew poll, over half of liberal women under the age of 30 have mental health medical diagnoses. So the world is just a mess right now, and I can't blame you for not wanting to stare deeply at the train wreck. It's equal parts aggravating and depressing. And I'm not making this video to be clickbaity. Using outrage to get clicks and views is not my intention at all. I'm trying to give you a heartfelt warning and tell you how to avoid a coming disaster. When I moved to Portland, Oregon several years ago, I was aware that it had a reputation for being a city with a small but very vocal number of crazy leftists who would frequently protest and were apologists for the insane cultural problems that their policies inevitably created. But I truly thought that they were mostly harmless and able to be ignored. As I write this in May of 2021, in the past year in Portland, there has been more than 170 nights of rioting in the city of Portland, Oregon. Rioting. I won't recount all the violence that occurred, but needless to say, it was extensive and more than any city could accommodate and remain functional. Before the months of rioting at the ICE federal building, before Portland's mayor was assaulted and scared to the point of moving out of his apartment complex, before journalists and peaceful protesters could be assaulted by masked Antifa goons with impunity from police, in essence, before Portland went over the edge, what I believe was the key moment that allowed the city's downfall was the response to the police shooting of Patrick Kimmons. Over 2 years ago, known gang member Patrick Kimmons was shot to death by police as he was fleeing a gang shooting that he participated in. He had a gun in his hand and wouldn't drop it after police ordered him to do so. This was all proven by the surveillance tape of the incident and the grand jury who reviewed the incident and cleared all officers of any wrongdoing. But in the time between the shooting and the surveillance tape coming out, journalists, politicians, and even some police bureaucrats gave statements that were sympathetic to the people upset about the incident, even though their outrage was based on knowing absolutely zero pertinent facts about the case. The victim of a police shooting was black. The police are racist murderers. Case closed. Why didn't the police think about this young, innocent black man's potential and how much his family loved him? Never mind that he was in a downtown parking lot shooting it out at 3 a.m., think of the small children he left home that day to go bust a cap that will never get to hug their daddy again. And what's key is, the outraged people who knew nothing took to the streets to protest without permits to do so and blocked traffic repeatedly. And the Portland police were told to stand down and allow these protesters to essentially kidnap, menace, and damage the property of innocent people for as long as they wished. That was the moment I believe that ushered in the madness to come. And on May 6, 2021, Portland protesters blocked traffic again to protest Patrick Kimmons' death. The guy was killed in 2018. These protesters are still protesting 3 years later. These protesters were carrying guns openly, aiming them at drivers, were damaging vehicle windows, tires, and spraying cars with some unknown irritant. One man in a vehicle was surrounded by a crowd and had his firearm stolen from him by the protesters. I moved to the great state of Texas in the summer of 2020, and I absolutely love it here.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
But in early May of 2021 in Plano, Texas, BLM supporters blocked traffic to protest again, without a permit, in the street for the death of Marvin Scott III, a 26-year-old black man who died in March while in police custody at Collin County Jail. 7 officers were subsequently fired and 1 resigned. 6 of the jailers filed appeals and 1 has been reinstated. The death has been ruled a homicide caused by a fatal acute stress response by the Collin County Medical Examiner's Office. Scott was arrested for misdemeanor marijuana possession. The family's attorney said that Scott was diagnosed as having schizophrenia and was undergoing a mental health crisis at the time. He was pepper sprayed and placed on a restraint bed after jailers noticed him acting strangely. He became unresponsive sometime after officers put a spit hood over his head. Here's a video of a driver at the illegal protest of Scott's death getting fed up with the protesters and the police officer who didn't even try to direct them to move out of the way of traffic.
Out of my way! Hey, where's the goddamn car? Get these fucking people out of the way! You get them out of here! They can't be standing in the middle of the road! Get out of here! Thank you. Black lives matter. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. You're an asshole.
Now, I know Texans especially don't want to hear this, but the cancer that started in Portland and Seattle is going to spread. You need to have a plan for what you'll do if you get caught stuck in traffic by people protesting illegally in the street. And we need some method of holding police officers and department heads accountable so that they don't just allow criminals to break the law with impunity just because of their political ideology. Because I lived in Portland during the rioting, I've walked inside of active riots and masses of masked people trying to instigate a violent police reaction. I've seen the slippery slope from police saying, "We didn't want to enforce the law because we didn't want to escalate the situation," and absolute lawlessness. Believe me, you don't want to find out what it looks like up close. And as proud and wonderful as the state of Texas is, I promise you it is not immune to the spread of this problem. What's to be done about it? Well, if you get caught in traffic, get out of your car and film yourself cursing out the police who aren't doing anything to enforce the law. Shame them. Call them every name in the book and post the video online. Find out who your local politicians are and call or email them, telling them you won't put up with public servants who would let this kind of nonsense take place in their jurisdiction. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton came out with this absolutely fantastic statement, which I'm going to read. May 10th, 2021. Subject, statement from Attorney General Paxton regarding mob rule in Plano, Texas. We must not let lawlessness take root in Texas. Unfortunately, it looks like it already has in Plano, thanks to a group of radical left armed agitators and a police chief unwilling to enforce the law. Last week, a group of militant BLM protesters illegally shut down traffic underneath a major highway. When one man got out of his car to demand the mob clear the way, an Antifa-like character pulled what appears to be a gun and pointed it at the man. Meanwhile, rather than disperse the crowd or arrest the lawbreakers, the lone police officer told the man to go away. I instructed one of my top deputies to contact the Plano police chief to get more details. What he heard paints an even worse picture than the video alone depicts. First, the chief told my deputy that while the weapon drawn wasn't a pistol, it was in fact a pepper ball gun. In a separate conversation, the chief claimed that it was a taser. In a recent Facebook post, the department is now saying it was an electronic control device. Whatever it was, the police declined to pursue the leftist who brandished the weapon, and no charges are being pressed against him. Second, the chief was anxious to excuse the rioters. Quote, "You have to understand the situation," urged the chief. "We have to negotiate with these people. Do you expect us to mass arrest these protesters? You know that's not going to happen," unquote. Most law enforcement officers are ready and willing to uphold law and order. We need them to do that, but too many are held back by politically motivated leaders, crippled by the woke agitators, now aiders and abettors to liberal lunacy. Finally, only one person from this whole incident is being charged with a crime, the one man who told the protesters to go away. Why? For assault and contact. Because he slapped a person's hand out of his face. No one else is being charged with anything. None of the law-breaking traffic blockers, not the guy who pulled the weapon, no one. I will always support Texans' First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. But I will never allow our beautiful Texas cities and neighborhoods to become Portland or Seattle or San Francisco because of the unchecked left. I call upon my friends and allies across the state to crack down on this lawlessness immediately. No excuses. Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas. Please, I'm begging you not to allow Texas to become Portland. I really don't want to have to move again.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Hi guys, Media Shadow here. I'm trying to grow the channel and hopefully get more than one video out a week. So if you like what you've seen, please give me a like, subscribe, share, or drop me some coin on Patreon. I've left a link in the description of the video. Thanks!